Chris Shandik, CYInterview, covering Las Vegas and the world. If you haven't already, please hit the like button below and please hit the subscribe button below to keep up with everything we have going on here at CYInterview in Las Vegas and beyond. We greatly appreciate it. Today we're going to revisit our interview with famed boxing announcer and boxing historian Al Bernstein. It took place in 2000. Now, as we know, Las Vegas is becoming the sports capital of the world. But prior to that, Las Vegas became, the boxing capital of the world when many fights with some of the greatest fighters in the world started taking place here in Las Vegas, of course, the likes of Mike Tyson and George Foreman, and Evander Holyfield, among others, had a lot of major different boxing matches here in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. So, with that being said, boxing has really made its, I think, return to Las Vegas, of course, during the Mayweather fighting years, of course, and now we got the Canelo Alvarez years. There's been some big fights, obviously, in Las Vegas during that period of time, and of course, Pacquiao was involved, obviously, here in Las Vegas as well. But, if you factor in all of those, fighters, that's what's really brought back, in my opinion, the Las Vegas situation of being here and still having a lot of relevance in the boxing community, of course. So I now bring you our CYInterview 2020 CYInterview with famed announcer and boxing historian Al Bernstein, and here it is.
You're on CYInterview.
I'm Chris Shandik. Featured columnist Jay Bernstein is with me. Today on CYInterview, we welcome boxing commentator and journalist Al Bernstein, who is currently an analyst for Showtime Television. We spoke with him at the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame last year at the Red Rock Hotel and Casino last. Al, thanks for joining us again on CYInterview. How are you, sir?
Good to be with you. Well, I'm doing good. I'm just getting over COVID-19, which unfortunately hit our family in the last month, but now I'm doing better.
Well, before getting into anything boxing related, how is everyone doing, and how are you?
Oh, good. I'm pretty much symptom-free at this juncture, and my wife, who had to be hospitalized, is much better. She's out of the hospital, and so we're, like so many families in America that dealt with this, we're trying to plot our way through, and looks like we'll have a good ending to it, which is good.
Before we get into any boxing topics, Jay, would you like to say anything on this behalf?
Well, no. I just I feel badly that you have to go through this challenge, but I'm happy that you guys are coming through it, and hopefully we'll come through this tunnel collectively as a nation and be better for it, and this will be over sooner rather than later. Yeah,
I think I was just watching the Dr. Hotez, who of course is an infectious disease expert on TV, talking about the fact that the FDA is doing a very thorough job now to try to get the vaccines approved, and once we get those, hopefully it'll set us all on the right course to getting past this, which would be great. And it impacts everything, and certainly has impacted sports as well as our everyday lives.
So focusing on more positive topics, of course, the sport of boxing, which you know, of course, a lot about. What did you make of last weekend's Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. exhibition bout, and do you think this was positive for boxing?
Well, I was supposed to do interesting. I was supposed to be handling the play-by-play for that event, but because I got COVID, I couldn't do it. So I was planning on being there, and it was a unique event. It's intriguing that it kind of organically took on a certain form that no one was sure, I don't think, what it was going to be, even the people planning it and putting it on. But it turned out to be an event that even boxing purists kind of thought was fun. It was a very eclectic event, to be sure, with the music thrown into it, and YouTubers fighting, and Tyson and Jones in their 50s. And strangely, it kind of, not only was it, obviously it was successful in terms of the number of buys. I think they got over 1 million buys, is what they're saying. But people they got a kick out of it. Now, what that means for the future and how it'll move forward, I think there'll be another one that I've heard that they're planning in March, which presumably I would be involved in. It's a different and unique kind of event, and people got a kick out of it.
What would you like to see from a boxing nostalgia historical standpoint? Who would you like to see get in the ring next for one of these things?
Well, it's so funny. I'm sure everybody was looking at it and saying, what would be, assuming that, the concept continues. Obviously, Mike Tyson wants to do it again, and, you can imagine almost anybody. Obviously, Evander Holyfield is now lobbying to be the next opponent, and, that would be fascinating. It would be a logical extension to look and say, well, what about, somebody like Antonio Tarver in a rematch against Glenn Johnson? They're both older. They both fought relatively recently in terms of maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And under these circumstances with bigger gloves and 2-minute rounds, would that be safe and would it be okay for them to fight? They're more competitive in terms of probably in terms of being less removed from the sport. So you could probably think of 3 or 4 of those kind of matches. You could take a Carl Froch, who only retired about 4 or 5 years ago, and put him in against some 168-pounder. Probably not Joe Calzaghe because he's older, even though God knows that would generate a lot of interest. So there are options to do this. Whether it's a good long-term idea or not remains to be seen, but for the moment it seems to be something that boxing fans are interested in.
Jay?
Al, it's funny. Sometimes, you mention boxing purists, and, I spoke to some people who were kind of wringing their hands over this and all, and oh my God, I mean, can you imagine this type of thing? And one of the things I said was, look, everybody loves a circus. And I think back to Ali Marciano, the so-called computerized fight in 1970. We had Ali Inoki, boxer v. wrestler in 75. I think we had Wepner and Andre the Giant back then. We had Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather Jr. much more recently. These type of things are, I think you put it well. I mean, they draw the public's interest. I think it's a general positive for boxing. Do you contextualize it in the same way as the kind of events I just mentioned?
Yeah, I think probably that's true. The point is, there have always been these kinds of events that cross over and are different, and I think that they're one-offs. They're not. That's why I guess I didn't really answer the question before that about whether it's good or bad for boxing. At the end of the day, I don't think it has any genuine impact. Other than to be the event that it is. These are, when I was doing the McGregor Mayweather fight, I was asked is it good or bad for boxing, and I said it's a one-off event. Now that actually turned out to be good for boxing because it brought probably some MMA fans, even though there are many fans that are both MMA and boxing fans, but I think that particular bout may have brought additional MMA fans to the sport. But in general, these kind of events, I think, are one-offs that have a shelf life of their own and, in the end, are not going to impact boxing that much, good or bad.
I happen to think the best thing that's happened to boxing in a long time is a competitive and interesting heavyweight division. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, the surprise of Andy Ruiz and so forth. But one of the things I feel is that boxing hasn't grown with the times. I mean, I remember, I don't remember exactly what year it was, maybe back in the 1970s when the cruiserweight division was first introduced, because the powers that be understood, hey, Rocky Marciano may have fought at around 185 and Joe Louis may have fought at around 190, but now we were getting, guys in there, 6'3", between, 207 to 220 and so forth, Foreman, Ali, Ronnie Lyle, Kenny Norton and so forth. These were simply bigger men. And one of the things I've seen is that it appears to me boxing, it's time for some more weight divisions. I don't know if you agree or not, but I think
absolutely not. Absolutely not. They did add a Bridgerweight division now. Boxing has a lot of weight divisions. They have literally almost every. I mean, if you go from 140 to 147 to 154 to 160, the only place there's a gap is. I mean, if anything, boxing's added too many weight divisions, but there's only a gap in the higher heavyweight, and now
that's what I'm talking about.
They've created a Bridgerweight division now. They moved the cruiserweight division up to 200 pounds, and that was a nod to say, okay, cruiserweight goes up to 200 now. Everything over 200, you're going to compete against each other. They have formed what they call a Bridgerweight division, which I think goes up to 220 or something. I recognize that the heavyweights have changed, but I just think that boxing has added so many weight divisions with all these junior and super weight divisions in between that it's created a lot of confusion, and I don't know about more weight divisions. I'm not really a devotee of that.
Well, look, under 200 pounds, I certainly agree with you. I'd probably get rid of some divisions under 200 pounds, no doubt. I just think of someone like, I don't know, if he was a champion, I guess, what was it, 205, 207, 2005, 2007, Nikolai Valuev, right? 7 feet, almost 330 pounds. I mean, the Klitschko's, big men. Tyson Fury, 6'9". What does he weigh? My God. Deontay Wilder doesn't weigh quite as much, but these are guys who actually make big. I'm 6 foot tall, and I'm not a tiny guy. I stood next to George Foreman, and I felt like a fly. And then, you think of George Foreman and Tyson Fury. You think there would be some harm in kind of bifurcating the heavyweight division and having an upper or lower?
Yeah, I mean, they've done it. The WBC and I think one of the other ones, they have created a division now. It's called the Bridgerweight division, where they're trying to do that. It's a close call because, if you're above, the cruiserweights, they say at 200, and then, yes, of course, most heavyweights now, bigger heavyweights are clocking in at, 240-ish. But remember, Deontay Wilder at 218, fought Tyson Fury, who was about 30 pounds heavier than him, and knocked him, literally almost came within seconds of knocking him out.
Very true, very true.
And Wilder had beaten, now, Alexander Usyk, the cruiserweight champion, who's now campaigning as a heavyweight, would be the ultimate example of somebody, can he compete against these bigger men? So far he has, but he hasn't faced the Joshuas and the Furies and Wilders, but he's winning. He's winning as a heavyweight. He's won 2 or 3 heavyweight fights. He came up from the 200-pound weight division, and I think he's weighing about 220, 218 now. So, I get the point of that Bridgerweight division that they created, but I just think, many people also see it as kind of a money grab for more, sanctioning belts. But it's not the worst idea, but I just think because boxing's had so many divisions, I'm not totally on board with it.
Understood. I mean, traditionally, a boxer, I don't know if they grow or it just gets harder to maintain weight, but we've had a lot of people over the years who've put on more and more weight and moved up in classes. Roy Jones Jr., I think, is a very, very good example of such a thing. We haven't had, I really can't think of many larger boxers who in their latter portion of their career has pared down and competed at a lighter weight, to wit. Do you think there is any chance at all that if a 220-pound Mike Tyson pared himself down to under 200 pounds or made weight at 200 pounds, that he could be competitive, not at the very, very top of the cruiserweight division, but he could be somewhat competitive against, let's say, people ranked 10 to 20 in the world in the cruiserweight division if he made the weight?
And maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he could get down to 200. It's been a long time since he was anywhere near that. And my general impression is that this Mike Tyson exercise is not about him fighting competitive boxers. It's about him having these exhibitions. I think he's aware that it would be a real stretch for him to compete against current-day younger boxers, whether they be in a division lower or higher. I think this is more about him doing something different.
Understood. What is it? Do you have the inside scoop, Al, on what he will actually make out of this for himself? He says he's giving away to charity, but he had a training camp and so forth. Are we to believe that Mike Tyson's going to give every penny of what he made to charity, or is he going to keep something?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the things is he's getting a fee to fight, but he's also a part of the promotion. So what he may be doing is giving his fee to charity, which is good and is great, and there may be a way for him to make some profits off his part as management of this Legends Boxing League. So, which would, be wholly appropriate, because if he's giving away his fee to charity, I think that's a noble gesture, and it's a fair, and it's a sizable amount of money. But I think probably, I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to say on the back end, and they did do well. They did over 1 million buys, so I think there's probably some commerce involved in this, but I think there's definitely a charitable part of this, and I believe that from this first one, it'll be a fairly significant amount of money, and I don't know what charities they're giving to. I don't remember, but I know there's a part of it that's charitable.
Got you. Let's drop down for a quick moment to somebody in a lower weight class with 50 wins and no losses under his belt. Floyd Mayweather Jr. Any insight on what his financial position might be, and if that might push him to jump back into the ring anytime soon? He certainly, as what I've seen over the years, doesn't seem to be a person who was overly respectful of the money he made. Should we expect him to be back in the ring sometime soon?
Well, he's done exhibitions and things of that nature. I doubt that we'll see him in a competitive situation. I think it would be more likely, he's had offers and has done exhibitions and things of that nature, and he has a promotional company that is a big part of his focus now, with Leonard Ellerby running it. So I just doubt that we'll see him in any competitive situation.
God, and last but not least, we were always blessed, and now we're blessed by your presence, but we were always blessed in the past. We made a good friendship with Bert Sugar, late great boxing commentator, used to come on here with CYInterview. Chris, we had him on actually to comment on Mayweather and Pacquiao, did we not?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was the last time, and of course now he's gone on to that sit ringside in the sky. Any reflections or thoughts back to Bert Sugar? There are so few people like yourself, like Bert, what I would call people who've actually been around for some of the glory days of boxing and so forth to still be around. Any quick thoughts on Bert Sugar?
Yeah, Bert was, an original. I knew Bert very well, and, he was one of those people who was marched to the beat of his own drummer. He wore, I always joke that that many drapes had to die so that he could wear pants.
I think I heard you say that on one occasion. Yes.
Bert had an interesting, and he was never without the hat. But he was, Bert was an interesting guy in that he was not just a boxing. He wrote many books and wrote almost as many books about horse racing and baseball as he did boxing. He was quite the expert on those topics. But clearly boxing was what he was best known for, and he was the boxing historian that held virtually every kind of writing post you could hold, editing magazines like Ring Magazine and a number of others. And so, Bert was a very unique fixture in the boxing world, and, he's missed by many people.
Indeed. We had on CYInterview, actually, Chris, you with him, Ernie Shavers. And if I recall correctly, in one of Bert's books, and I think he told us, he rated Shavers as the hardest puncher in history. I guess certainly the hardest in the heavyweight division, put him above George Foreman. I've heard George Foreman speak and say that nobody punched like Shavers. Do you agree with that, by the way?
Yeah, Ernie Shavers was a huge puncher. I mean, he could hurt everybody. I mean, he hurt Ali, who it was almost impossible to hurt, and almost had him out. He had Larry Holmes down. He won many, many fights by knockout. He lost some by knockout, which was interesting. Ernie Shavers' career was odd because he lost fights he never should have lost, but yet won many fights that, demonstrating that amazing power he had. And Ernie's a wonderful guy, still comes to boxing events, and I've seen him at the Hall of Fame and other places in recent years, and he's a lovely, lovely guy.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Chris, was it at Caesar's Palace that he was signing autographs? I don't recall the location.
It was at Planet Hollywood.
It was at Planet Hollywood, and I believe back then, this was a couple of years ago, so was Leon Spinks, was he not?
Correct.
But I don't know if you have any updates on Leon Spinks. Al, he's not doing too well, is he?
No, I know he's had a lot of health issues. I haven't talked to he and his wife for a little while, so I'm not sure how he's doing. I know it's been a little difficult for him, but I'm not sure just where he's at on the health continuum.
Gotcha. Well, we're very, very thankful to have you here. We hope you come back. You are...
If I can, I'd like to mention...
Please.
Can get to both my TV show and podcast, Al Bernstein Unplugged. It's on YouTube. It's on all the major podcast platforms, and it's also on about 7 different networks around the United States. They can find it on, as I said, on YouTube or all the major podcast platforms. And we have major boxing guests. So this week we have Derek James, the trainer of Errol Spence, who of course is going into battle against Danny Garcia, and Lennox Lewis. Our upcoming guests include Lennox Lewis, Nonito Donaire, and a number of others. So we have a lot of folks on there. So if people want to avail themselves of that, they can do so.
You can also
we'll put up the links on CYInterview.com to direct people, and certainly love to have you back.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
So for boxing announcer and journalist Al Bernstein, featured columnist Jay Bernstein, and CYInterview, I'm Christian.